There are thousands of self-help books out there. Thus, how do you know which one is the best for you? You check the ratings, you read the annotations, and end up choosing none or the wrong one? Well, frankly, what if I told you I do the same? I can still tell you which one of the popular, old, recent, short, and even unknown self-help books I consider to be the most helpful. Let me know if you want a story time about how I used to hate reading and how I'm here reading 60 books a year. Out of the 60 books I read, 13 of them were self-help, growth, business, habit, and just overall productivity books. So let's dive right in. Book number 1 was The 5 a.m. Club. The storyline was interesting and unlike any self-help book, but did I have any key takeaways and did it change my life? No. All I really learned is that you should wake up early. I love hearing people talk about morning routine, waking up early, thus I genuinely thought that I was gonna love this book, but unfortunately I did not. Part of the reason could have been because I listened to the book, and that sometimes tends to ruin the experience. Either way, I gave this book 2 stars. And why should you read this? Well, frankly, I don't know. Do you not already know that waking up at some magical time like 5 a.m. can change your life? Yeah. I'm certain that you should try waking up at different times of the day with the condition that you get enough sleep to find what works best for you. For me, that is 6 a.m. currently at least, but the rest, 5 a.m., 4 a.m. magic is unreal for most of us. Hence, you should find a wake up time that allows you to be most productive and disciplined to accomplish all of your duties. Book number 2 is Manifest. This was an amazing guide, introduction to manifestation, and if you want to immerse yourself into it, discover the right approach to manifestation, I would suggest this book. It's quite short, easy to read, and great for beginners. I gave this 4 stars because the information wasn't revolutionary, nor was it life-changing for me at the time. Book 3, Atomic Habits. I actually read this book twice since I really struggle to commit to good habits. It's the perfect book and it's known worldwide for helping people form good habits and get rid of bad ones. Literally what it says on the cover. Easy implementation in real life with great examples and sources that make it really comprehensive and clear. Perfect for perfectionists, organization freaks like me. I gave this 4 stars because some of the stuff is quite self-explanatory, but that doesn't mean that you should not read it. Each book and its reviews vary completely from person to person, depending on their lifestyle, interests, age. Therefore, the value me and you are getting out of the book might be a complete 360, meaning you might have so much life experience, knowledge that this book might not benefit you. But isn't it worth finding out for sure? If you don't have the time for reading, audiobooks are a great alternative. And if you are to read any book I recommend in this video, let it be either this one or the next one. That said, the next book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough. This is for sure one of my top 2 favorite of the favorite self-help books because I genuinely had an amazing time while reading it and I laughed out loud too many times. Frankly, it's a hilarious book that is real, pure, and authentic because he doesn't lie or hide the truth or cover it up or make it all charming. He says it so bluntly and funny that it makes it highly relatable and easy to read. It teaches you how not to care. It's not really deeper than that, but the storytelling and long chapters are definitely worth it. If you couldn't tell, this was a 5-star read. Book number 5, The Miracle Morning. I was hooked on this one. I started this book one summer evening and it got me so invested that I had to finish it as soon as possible, and so I did the next morning. I'm gonna be upfront with you. I mostly read and rate the self-help books based on the value it gives me, of course, but also depending on how fun it was to read. At the end of the video, I'm gonna give you a great example of which book might have been amazing with knowledge, but it was just so dense and boring that I could not get into it. But back to The Miracle Morning. It gave me a great time, but the actual lessons in The Miracle Morning isn't something I want to implement into my life currently, but this was a 5-star read because of the writing, storytelling. Reading self-help books for me is like reading a good novel that actually teaches you some life lessons. Next book is one of the most practical ones I read, How to Break Up With Your Phone. What I enjoyed, half of this book was theory about our phones and how it's affecting us. And the second half, I'm pretty sure, is a 4-week plan on how to actually break the addiction. I followed through with this plan, so I can definitely tell you it works. However, for only a short period of time. If you stop thinking about it, noticing it, after the challenge, you just fall right into your old pattern. Check out my Digital World playlist videos where you might find something helpful. I gave this book 4 stars because the effort I had to put in sometimes annoyed me, but other than that, it was definitely very helpful. Before we talk about book 7, I thought I'd share a story time. I once talked to a person about 27 years old who occasionally reads self-help, and I came across another perspective. We started talking about self-help productivity books, and he said most of them are quite self-explanatory and not that helpful. Now yes, with some books that might be the case. Even for me as a 17-year-old. When I mentioned my favorite book, which was actually the only one I could remember at the time, I said Atomic Habits by James Clear. He said that he didn't really find it helpful. Personally, I did. Yes, I do agree that the information is quite self-explanatory, but with any book, even if I had some knowledge of that subject, most of the times I'd still enjoy the book if it was well written, because it just balances my thoughts. It gives me phrases, quotes, steps, plans to follow, new ideas, without me putting in my own effort. If you can relate, please let me know. The next book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. First half of the book was highly interesting, specifically the part where he and his friend were little, but after a while I simply got a bit bored. I definitely took my lessons from it and thus rated it 4 stars. It's amazing if you want to know more about the business side of life and how the thinking of the rich dad differs from the poor dad. That is definitely worth finding out, and dare I say, it's quite life-changing. The next book is All It Takes Is a Goal. I rated this 5 stars. I'm just cutting right to the chase. The writing, marvelous. Tips, lessons, nice. It was nicely written, including some key aspects. It taught me how to realize what I value most and which areas of my life I need to set the goals for. I've also just read How Teens Win by the same author. It included basically the same main lessons and key points. Therefore, if you're a teenager, you have 2 options, either reading All It Takes Is a Goal or How Teens Win, but I would not recommend both because it follows the same ideas, even says some of the same sentences. On the other hand, if you're an adult, the choice is clear. All It Takes Is a Goal. Book number 9, Feel Good Productivity. I have been subscribed to the author's YouTube channel for years probably, but then I read this book and I was low-key disappointed. I felt like I learned more from his videos that cover a variety of different topics, and the book was just not that great. Besides teaching that productivity can feel good, which is a nice perspective, I did not learn all that much. I gave this 3 stars and would not recommend, sadly. Book number 10, How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. This book was published in 1994, meaning it's old. Therefore, the information was highly outdated. The main ideas, tips, topics were nice, just a bit not functional for me personally. Written by an author who has had years and years of experience with speaking publicly for a living, it did not resonate and translate that well for me as an introvert who, I don't know, I was going with the who. Surely there has to be new books that you can get more valuable and up-to-date information. I gave this 3 stars mainly because the author, being a great speaker and writer, delivered the story very well. Book number 11, Mind Cleanse. I read this book for no other reason than because it was short. Honesty is the best policy. I was in a huge slump and I thought a quick self-help read would fix it, and it indeed did. The book itself consisted of great tips, information, and a guide of 14 days, but did I do it or did I need it? No. Would I recommend it? Yes, if that's what you really need. And it was similar to How to Break Up With Your Phone, but more mind-related, focusing on meditation. Overall great, and I gave this 3 stars as well. Book number 12, 100 Quotes That Will Change Your Life. Again, same thing with the length. I read this during my bus ride to school, which is 30-40 minutes. Downside was that the quotes were men-focused. Most of them were gender neutral. I did not really mind that much. I gave this 4.5 stars. Great quotes, and some of them you'll even be able to hear in my new TikTok short series called One Life-Changing Quote a Day. And lastly, I read The Art of Being Alone. I believe people with no friends, no acquaintances, absolutely no one would love this book. I'm not sure. I did. I felt like the author was depressively focused. She said that if you don't make friends in college, then you're basically gonna go friendless throughout life. And that's just something I highly disagree with. I believe you can meet new friends, people every single day, especially now with social media's presence having a huge spotlight in our lives. It's easier to make friends than ever. Post one video and there's definitely gonna be someone who's gonna comment, and it's probably gonna be something nice. You can comment on another person's post and see if they're interested in becoming friends. And therefore, I'm not even sure how much I rated this book because I could not find how much I rated it. Therefore, I rated this book. But now, how about the books I DNF'd? And here is where the book I previously mentioned comes into play. And it's 101 essays that will change the way you think. Consisted of too many facts, thus it was boring. Gave this book 2 tries, but it just did not stick. I'll probably try an audio version next time because if it's so viral, I really want to know what the hype is all about. Next is Everything Is Fucked, a book about hope. This book was disappointing. Maybe it would have gotten better. I'm gonna be honest, I did not even get further than chapter 2, I'm pretty sure. Unfortunately, this book was about war and history, and I don't do those topics. And lastly, from the DNF section is The Daily Laws. I was actually really committed to reading this book through and through throughout the whole year. I realized just how annoyed and upset it left me. I read until 36%, aka May 6th, which is actually a really long time, 4 whole months. And it didn't even matter that it only took 1 minute of my day. So I made up my mind to not torture myself any longer and quit. Nevertheless, watch another one of my videos here to support me. Thanks for watching.